Good morning. Welcome to Southeastern 16's basketball reaction. We had 3 games from Tuesday night. We are going to discuss. I'm your host, Chris Lee, joined by Blake Lovell and Max Barr. Today, we will talk about Alabama's 103-87 win over Vanderbilt in Tuscaloosa. Tennessee rebounds from an upset in Nashville with a 68-56 win over Mississippi State. And in the nightcap, if you stayed up for it, not the most fun of games to watch, unless maybe you were a Texas fan. The Longhorns upset Missouri, keeping alive the Southeastern 16 kiss of death. And that one, Max Barr, lead us off. Where would you care to start this morning?
Where I would care to start is that I believe that now we are. If you were to put odds on it, how many teams get into the NCAA tournament from the SEC? I think your most expensive price would be 12 right now.
Ooh.
And so that's where I want to start right now. Huge win for Texas. What was it? I believe it was 50. It was like 50-50, or it was 50-49. 1-point game with 4 minutes left, and then Texas clamps down on the defensive end, and Trey Johnson's able to get a few shots to fall. Kaluma's able to grab a few more offensive rebounds. And that last 4 minutes is won by Texas, and they come away with a huge win that I believe, Blake, they were on the outside looking in before this game, I believe maybe, or they were definitely on the bubble, and a win here over Missouri, quad 1 win. I think Texas is on the right side of the bubble now.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. We all said this was going to happen, and yet we were all picking Missouri for some reason. We're like, we know Texas is going to win this game, and we all said, yeah, but anyways, we're going to pick Missouri. So, I mean, we just said it was a must-win spot for Texas. Wasn't a must-win spot for Missouri. And anytime you have a team in that scenario where it's a tie game with whatever left, like that's the team that you want to see go out and just completely say, hey, we've got to do this. We've got to figure out a way to win this game, and that's what Texas did. So props to them, but listen, y'all don't realize this is exactly what we want, because that means another SEC team is in the NCAA tournament as of right now. And this is exactly probably, obviously you're Missouri fans, not what you want, but this is the scenarios that are playing out right now are exactly the formula to get 12 or 13 teams into the NCAA tournament. I mean, it is. Like, just having these teams bounce back and forth and beat each other that are on kind of this, Missouri gets a signature win. Vandy gets a signature win. Texas now gets a signature win because it's Missouri. And so this is how a conference breaks a record. This is how a conference gets this many teams in, and it still goes back to the work they did a month or two ago. So, yeah, I mean, if you're Missouri, you're not happy about the loss by any means, but, it was kind of a team that needed it more, and quite frankly, I mean, Texas they were the teams that made the plays down the stretch to win the game. So I thought it was pretty much as simple as that. So,
well, to be fair, we said we thought Texas was good enough, but it was in a prove-it scenario. We said the same thing with Vanderbilt Saturday against Tennessee. We thought Vanderbilt could win
Texas
the game,
was the favorite, too. That's the difference. Like,
well,
they were the favorite
right.
in this game, so we were kind of like, we're all picking the underdog. That's very unusual. So
that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
Ken Palm, top 50 teams. Ohio State, loss. Connecticut, loss. Texas A&M, loss. Auburn, loss. Tennessee, loss. Oklahoma, finally got that one. Florida, blowout loss. So it was back to the Missouri has won this type of game before. I guess depending on what you think of Oklahoma, I think Oklahoma is a good team, but it's probably a borderline NCAA tournament team. I don't put Oklahoma in the same category Missouri. I think we just needed a prove-it game. We knew Texas had the talent to win it. Texas really ground Missouri to a halt last night. So, I mean, those things happen. And it's like you guys said, it's Max, I don't know that I will go 12. I think 11 seems like the more likely number. Maybe 2 or 3 between Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, and Texas. I feel like everybody else is going to get there. Georgia might have to play a little better offense before I'm convinced of it. But I feel like, at least 8 or 9 of those teams are going to be there. And a couple more are going to get in. I'm just not sure who the schedule is or is not going to pick off.
It's going to be about the big wins that are accumulated by that group of three of Vanderbilt, Texas, Oklahoma. It's going to be those wins. If those three teams, if 2 out of the 3 are able to accumulate like multiple big wins, maybe they steal one on the road. It's a big quad one, notch on the resume. The record of those 3 teams moving forward is going to directly correlate with if we get, 11, 10, 11, 12, whatever it may be around that range. The NCAA tournament, it's those 3 teams I'm looking at.
Yeah, I think 12 gets in. So it's my prediction.
That's where I'm leaning right now, too.
I hope you guys are right.
I think it's 12. Just because I think we've got to remember these are all quad 1 games for the most part.
Yep.
And someone has to win those games. And I think these teams have to play each other. So they're going to win the games against each other, too. And so that's a quad 1. It's going to wind up being 12. I believe that unless one of these teams just completely falls off, I think 12 is realistic. But, also if Oklahoma loses at Arkansas tonight and all of a sudden they start spiraling, then that's not a good formula either. You still need to get to, 7 or 8 conference wins. And I think for teams like Missouri, Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, it needs to be 8. Maybe we'll see what combination that is, but I think that's, the most likely thing. So, and if you're Missouri, you only have 4 to go to get there. Vanderbilt's got 5 to go to get there. Oklahoma's got further to go. But, so.
Were you guys surprised that Missouri's offense was held down like that? I didn't really see that one coming.
Well, I said it in the preview. I said Missouri's shooting north of 40% in SEC play right now. I really doubt that's going to last, or at least it's going to come back down to earth a little bit. Well, 4 of 22, 18% is a bit extreme. I wasn't expecting that much, but yeah, I mean, they were shooting the lights out first few games of SEC play. You go on the road against a scrappy, taller team, lengthy team on the perimeter. Julian Larry had a great game, by the way. I liked how the broadcast was giving Julian Larry his props, especially defensively. But yeah, I mean, when you have Caleb Grill go 1 of 5 and Jacob Cruz go 0 of 3, so that's like your 2 designated shooters go 1 of 8. You're left with everyone else trying to, get you up to 7, 8 threes. Didn't happen.
Foul trouble also kind of a big deal because we saw a lot of T.O. Barrett down the stretch instead of Robinson.
Yeah, good point.
Well, to go back to what, I know Andrew and Tyler are picking on us about ranking Missouri so high in the power rankings, but I mean, just to ask, were we surprised by this? I mean, probably a little bit because that's the worst game Missouri's played all season offensively.
Mm-hmm.
So, this isn't the norm. And so we could only kind of judge them on what they had done before last night, right? And so before last night, they had lost at Auburn, lost by 3 against Illinois without either their best player or second best player, however you want to put it. And they lost at Memphis to start the season on night 1. So it's that's a pretty good body of work. Sure, is it going to rival some of the other teams' body of work? Maybe not, but it's a power ranking. It's not necessarily... and Max and I gave our reasons as to why we moved Missouri up higher. And so, yeah, I mean, after a performance like this is the first kind of, data point, as the net and all these other places like to use, that we have to now look and say, all right, well, this can't turn into a trend, right? Is it just a one-time thing? We'll see. I mean, they play a pretty good defensive team coming up on Saturday, so I think that's a great kind of point to see. All right, how do you bounce back against Ole Miss, who, as we know, is just going to completely kind of grind you out too? So I think that's an important part for Missouri. As we say, you can't let one turn into 2, and not your best performance here. And certainly you can play a team on Saturday that could do that same thing to you. I'm sure Missouri fans a little bit nervous, don't want to let this kind of turn into the spot. Because remember, too, it's not even just that, right? By losing this game, now you're looking at your upcoming schedule, home against Ole Miss, then you go to Mississippi State and Tennessee. You're going to be the underdog in both those games.
Week off between the Mississippi games, too.
Right. So that, again, that's the schedule this year, and it's kind of the nature of it. But it's a tricky spot for Missouri, especially after losing that one. And so they really need to continue to win those home games, especially starting on Saturday, because if you don't win Saturday, again, you're going to be the underdog at Mississippi State and at Tennessee, and you don't want this to be a 4-game losing streak heading into a brawl with Texas A&M on February 8th. So,
some people in the chat are making the point that I made in the power rankings. I thought people were being a little hard on Tennessee because of recent performance, but they had a lot Tennessee did in its back pocket. Missouri, as we pointed out, going back to the Kansas game, was top 10 in Bart Torvik heading into last night. Point would be, I don't think that just as we should not react to Tennessee, and I had Tennessee higher than the group, but there were some good reasons. There were some cracks in Tennessee in the way it performed both sides of the floor that you guys brought up that I probably had not fully considered when we went through our discussion. That place for Tennessee last night settled back closer to what Tennessee had been. But I would say let's say the same thing about Missouri. Missouri's on 2 months of great play. And I think going to Texas, late night tip-off, talented team that was kind of due for a win, I don't think we need to overreact to Missouri putting up a bit of a stinker, certainly offensively, in Austin. Because I think everybody, like even Alabama a week ago, went through a little bit of this. Didn't look like Alabama against Ole Miss. That's just the league.
You mentioned Tennessee. Do we want to hop to Tennessee, Mississippi State?
Sure.
Did you guys catch any of Rick Barnes' quotes after? Barnes is having a great year of press conferences. He's putting out some good quotes, some funny stuff. He goes, one of the reporters asked him about fouling three-point shooters, because Tennessee, it just seems like every game now they're fouling a three-point shooter. They asked him, and Rick Barnes goes, I bet you we're leading the nation in it. Fouling three-point shooters. I thought it was a great physical response from Tennessee. I thought it was probably their worst defensive performance that I had seen in a while against Vanderbilt. Just kind of got out physicaled. So Barnes challenges them there with that. They come back, out physical Mississippi State. Huge first half. Mississippi State fought back. They did, but just couldn't string together enough offense. I like the bounce back there for the Vols.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to disagree with that. I think this is – I don't remember if we said it in the preview or somewhere else, but, I'm not going to pick Tennessee to lose another home game this year. Again, spoiler alert, I'm going to pick them in every home game they play in because I really don't care who they play. It's just this is what they do there, and we kind of brought up the numbers, I feel like, at some point recently. And that's why we were kind of laughing on Monday in the power rankings. We're like, all right, well, Max and I are down on Tennessee in the way they played the past 2 weeks in terms of, a little more inconsistency than we'd like to see. But they're just going to go out and probably win 4 of their next 5, at least, and then they'll move up to number 2 again, probably. Maybe up number 1 if they beat Auburn on the road, right? So, yeah, I think we all kind of knew this was coming. 56 points, 52, 52, 64, 36, 70, 35, 68, 57, 64. That's the points that Tennessee has given up in Knoxville this year. They haven't given up more than, 56 in an SEC home game so far through 3. Arkansas scored 52, Georgia scored 56, Mississippi State scored 56. So, if you're a Kentucky fan, you're hoping you hit above 56 on January 28th next week. But, that's just kind of what they do. And I think that's going to continue to be the difference. And if it is, look at all the great wins they're going to rack up at home. Kentucky, Florida, Missouri, and so forth. So, yeah, their defense is never in question. Like Max said, maybe a question a little bit after one bad performance. And I even said I didn't think their defense certainly wasn't the problem when they lost at Florida. It was more offense-based. But, this is just what they do. They make you start your offense very far out. And, this is – when they're playing defense like this, they don't have to, score 80 points. They can score 68 and win by double digits just because they'll just completely lock you down. And Mississippi State wasn't getting any good shots, force you to take bad shots. I mean, just reel off the laundry list of things that we always say about Tennessee's defense, and it's kind of what they did here in this game. So,
well, lost in the 1 point loss at Vanderbilt to a good Vanderbilt team was the fact, and one basket goes differently. They win. The narrative coming out of that game is completely different. But everybody kind of forgot once they lost. Chaz Lanier got back to more of what we'd seen from Chaz Lanier before the 3-game shooting slump. They shot the ball well from 3 again last night. Not great, but okay. And so some of the things that have been concerns for Tennessee have started to get turned around. Like the defense is going to be there. Now, I don't think it's an elite offense. I don't think it's up there with Florida, with Kentucky, with Alabama, with Auburn. But it's good enough to beat most teams if Tennessee defends the way it defends. You just can't have Chaz Lanier going 3 for 15 consistently. Now that they've got him back with 2 straight decent shooting games, I think that kind of levels out the panic around this team a bit, Max.
Yeah, and how about Zeigler? Doesn't do a ton offensively, but he does have 7 assists, and he has 5 steals. 5 steals for Zakai Zeigler. That is just crazy. He now has, what is that? So he has 12 steals in his past 3 games. Just him. You want to talk about on-ball defense. Mississippi State, 8 assists as a team to 11 turnovers. Was not Cam Matthews' best game, just 2 points. 0 of 2 from 3. I don't know why he keeps shooting threes now. He had that one game where he made 2. Now he keeps shooting threes. But they did a great job forcing Mississippi State into isolation. And you have, I don't think there's a single person that had a positive assist to turnover rate. Well, yeah. Claudell Harris had 1 assist, 0 turnovers, and Nwoko had 1 assist, 0 turnovers. Everyone after that had it at least a negative. So they did a great job at not letting Mississippi State penetrate and ball reversal. It was all isolation for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, I mean, Tennessee, as we said, goes to Auburn on Saturday. They host Kentucky next week, and they're not leaving Knoxville for 10 days after that on Tuesday. So Kentucky, Florida, Missouri. And then they get 4 of their next 5 on the road, which we talked about was kind of one of the quirks in their schedule. So, but they'll be the favorite in at least 2 of those road games, Oklahoma and LSU. So, yeah, I mean, Tennessee's path, I think, to an SEC title, is still fine, even though they have a couple losses. But, it's a big stretch coming up for them. As we said, when you start dropping home games, that's when it gets interesting. But right now, I just don't see that happening. So, with the way that they play there. So, and then Mississippi State, boy, you want to talk about how important it was to hold off Ole Miss on Saturday.
Yeah.
Because, they go to South Carolina on this Saturday, and while they beat them by 35 a couple weeks ago, wouldn't be surprised to see that be pretty close there in Columbia. And then still, I mean, they've still got 2 games to go against Alabama, still got Florida, A&M, but Mississippi State's schedule, it's hard to say this, but I think Mississippi State's schedule is manageable the rest of the way. When I look at other SEC schedules, they've certainly, I feel like, this stretch here, Kentucky, Auburn, Ole Miss, Tennessee, like that's a rough stretch, and they go 1-3 in it. But the way the schedule kind of falls, I think they've got one of the better schedules left, just in terms of kind of the balance, home and away, and the competition. So,
yeah, I hate to keep bringing it up, but Max, you touched on it. 8 assists on 19 made buckets last night for State.
Yeah.
The Kanye Clary return watch still on. I just think that's going to be something that's going to continue to be an issue with them until they get him back. Hubbard again last night, not great, 5 of 16 from the floor. That was not the place you wanted to play under that circumstance.
Yeah. No, I agree. I don't have much more to add.
All right, let's get to the chat for a second. And then we'll quickly run through Alabama Vanderbilt. All right. So, yeah, as Nathan brought up earlier, we'll talk about the Boogie Flan injury too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but we'll do that before we hop off as we kind of do a quick preview for tonight's games. We have a hard out today at 9:15, so we won't be on the usual hour. But, yeah, I mean, injuries, boy, it's significant this year. Have an injury. And Braves fan says Missouri got a little too confident because they saw number 4 in the Southeastern 16 power rankings. They were number 5, just for what it's worth. We did not move them all the way up to 4, but maybe they did see the power rankings and thought, you know what, that's all we need to see. Probably not, but it's also always a possibility. Thomas brings up, teams that can play man-to-man defense can also be a kind of separator, and we've seen that, again, with some of these teams defensively. You know, whether we've talked about just some of the defensive teams that have won out over the offensive teams. I don't think that's always the case, but we've certainly seen some of those scenarios so far through 5 or 6 games for some teams. So, been a big thing for it for sure. So, I look cold. Yeah, I do have a bigger coat, but I mean, it's 10 degrees outside, so probably 30 something in here.
It was 6 when I went to walk Oreo this morning. 6.
There you go. So, Virginia double dribble brings up a good point. He lives in Auburn, and they're off this week in the midweek. But I mean they've got roads closed and everything there. So I mean, who knows what the schedule would have looked like for them? But of course they don't play until Saturday now. So a good spot to be in. So all right, let's quickly wrap up, or at least wrap up last night with Alabama Vanderbilt. I mean, 103-87. Alabama puts up 100 points again, go figure. It's kind of like we said, you want to talk about an outlier, that Ole Miss game. We talked about what Tennessee's allowed at home this season defensively. Alabama's scoring numbers at home this season: 103, 107, 105, 64 against Ole Miss. So, again, there's the outlier. 81, 83, 72, 88, 110. So, I mean, in SEC play now, 3 of the 4 home games in SEC play, or wait, no, 1, 2. They've only had 3 at home games. So Oklahoma, they put up 107, Vanderbilt 103, and of course they scored 102 at Kentucky. So, yeah, Alabama just fine. I mean, Vanderbilt made that a game too at the end, and yet you wouldn't know it if you just kind of looked up the box score, because Alabama wins by 16, but Vanderbilt was right there with a chance to, I think, cut it to 8, 7 or 8,
within 10.
Like
yeah.
So.
And
yeah, they had
final
it
3.
They had it to 9. So, yep. But that just kind of shows you, how this game played out. And for what it's worth, too, Alabama was up 22 with 12 minutes left. Vanderbilt scored, 42 points in the final 12 minutes of the game. And meanwhile, Alabama scored like 36 or something, I think. So, it's just one of those kind of games. Alabama got to the free throw line a lot, 34 attempts, made 23 of them. And yeah, I mean, we knew this would be a challenge. Alabama's rolling right now, and I mean, I think just what we said going in, Max, it was just the impact the big guys have on a game like this. Alabama had 9 blocks, and I know Vanderbilt still scored points, but man, there's nothing easy when you're a smaller team playing a team like Alabama that's got either Big Cliff or Dioubate or these kind of guys that just have the length and can, affect shots in so many different ways.
How about Mo D? What a game.
Career high in points, and I think second or third double-double for the season. Aden Holloway could not miss the first half, literally did not miss a shot, had 16 points. It kind of played out the way I thought it would. Both teams can score. Alabama can just do that better than just about anybody. And I thought that the length that Alabama's got, you've got 3 6'11" guys, and in Sherelle, is it Sherelle or Cheryl?
I think Sherelle.
That's the way they pronounce it. Usually that name is not pronounced that way, but that's the way they had it on TV last night. That's a 4th guy who's 6'10". Vanderbilt's rolling 6'7" and 6'8" in the post. Thought that would be a problem. You saw it a problem for Kentucky. It wasn't just the blocks. It was the length that affected shots. And I thought that would be a separator. But by the way, can we dispose of the narrative that Alabama doesn't play defense? It's a top 50 defensive team in KenPom. The games are faster paced. you're going to give up more points with that many possessions. Now, Alabama is the defense is not what the offense is. I get it. But it's not a bad defensive team. Alabama's a good defensive team. And I think that was really what showed a lot last night for the Crimson Tide, is that length inside was enough to slow Vanderbilt down, enough to get what ended up being a comfortable win.
Yeah, last year, Alabama, their offense and defense finished in KenPom. Their offense finished second, and their defense finished 111th.
Yeah.
Right now, their offense is third, and their defense is 46th. So their defense has gotten significantly better. Guys, right now, the SEC has the 4 best offenses in the nation. Auburn's 1, Kentucky's 2, Alabama's 3, Florida's 4. That's the whole country for the whole year. That is crazy to start. A few quick notes. Shout out to Blake Byler. He covers the Tide, does a great job. Alabama has now broken 100 points 6 times.
Yep.
That's at this point last year, they only had 5. So they're outpacing their offense from last year right now. That was a pretty cool little stat. And then another thing, I thought this was the coolest thing. Nate Oates said that a few weeks ago, Mo D dominated practice, and the next day they installed an entire new section of the play sheet just for Mo Dioubate called the off-road package. I love that. That is awesome. But you saw it in the game, just the physicality nonstop, came in waves. They're just one after the other, and you just get one single. It's just like you get one mismatch. You know, Alabama gets a guy that's a few inches shorter than them. They're taking him right away, taking him off the bounce right away, getting into them. Mark Sears is now number 8 in the nation in KenPom's individual player of the year rankings. Sears is up to 8. He's been fantastic distributing the ball and drawing contact, guys. When you look at Sears drawing contact numbers, he's at a career high. He's always been right around like 4 to 5-ish, maybe 6 fouls drawn per 40 minutes. Right now he's up at 7. He's getting to the free throw line at a rate that we haven't seen in a while. So Sears is playing well. Holloway's playing well. The physicality's nonstop. Stevenson's playing well. Big Cliff's back and got his confidence rolling, blocking shots. I'm liking the last 2 games here from the Tide.
Well, I mean, and Sam brings up the point we've talked about. Like, it's just, yeah, I mean, their 3-point percentages are still pretty lackluster. Like, they're still shooting 32.5% from 3. But we always say, too, it's a misconception that they are just a 3-point shooting team. They're not. Their ability to get the free throw line is a big part of this. And, too, I mean, think about it. They're sitting here at 16-3. They now have the toughest strength of schedule overall in the country. It's now number 1. And so I think for Alabama, like, it's so important for them to start this way, to win, like, road games at A&M and Kentucky, because their upcoming schedule, as I said, I mean, I'd probably be more surprised than not if Alabama is not 9-1, 10-1, maybe, heading into that Auburn game on February 15th. Now, that's going to include having to win at Mississippi State, Arkansas, and Texas, but the way they play offense, like, I'm probably going to have a hard time picking against them in those kind of games. And then home games against LSU and Georgia. 2 teams that just offensively cannot pack the same kind of punch that Alabama can. So if they are in that spot, the back part of their schedule is where they hit the grind. Home against Auburn, at Missouri, home against Kentucky, home against Mississippi State, at Tennessee, home against Florida, at Auburn. That's a brutal stretch to finish SEC play. So think about what they're doing now and how many good wins they banked, the number 1 strength of schedule in the country, and yet they still have that to go. So,
yeah,
I mean, yeah, like Alabama.
Are they a 1
keeps
seed
playing
right
like
now?
this. Yeah, they're a number 1 seed right now, and
so.
they will be a number 1 seed. I think, barring a complete collapse, I think both Alabama and Auburn are in great positions to be number 1 seeds. If they keep, if the trend continues,
right,
I think both those teams will be in a great spot for that. Because, again, this isn't the way it used to be. Like, Alabama could lose 6 or 7 games maybe and still have a chance at a number 1 seed because their overall body of work is just so good. So,
yeah, number 1 and number 2 remaining strength of schedule in the country, according to BPI. Alabama 1, Vanderbilt 2.
There you have it.
A couple things I wanted to mention from last night, if you don't mind for a second. Mark Sears goes over 2,500 points. I think ESPN said he was the 82nd player to ever eclipse that point mark. So congratulations to Mark Sears. And I don't know how high he will move up, but plenty of points for him to go in the season, I think. Alabama, still is people, and we've kind of hit it. I still not playing at its ceiling. Very interested to see what this looks like when we go into the tournament, because I think there's more there for that team, which is a little scary. Let's unpack a couple things for Vandy for a minute, guys. One thing the last two games, Tyler Nickel has really shot the ball well from three. That's something they've been lacking. So that may be something to watch going forward. We talked about Jalen Carey had been playing better ball. That's something they needed. You're starting to see – I would just ignore the 16 points. I don't know that much of anybody was going to beat Alabama the way that it played last night, as many contributions as it's got from as many guys. But you're starting to see some guys step up and give Vanderbilt some stuff where it needs it.
I thought McGlockton had another huge game.
Yeah.
Even though it was so quiet because of
fouls,
just the fouls and the pace of play and how many different storylines there were with this game. But McGlockton, I keep asking you, I might just ask you every time now, but I keep saying, where would Vandy be without Devin McGlockton? I mean, my gosh, he's just been. You look at his numbers when you're talking about stuff in the stat sheet. I mean, try to find a game where he doesn't have an assist, block, steal, 3-pointer, a few free throws. It's every game with this guy. He's probably one of the best 6'7" bigs I've seen. I mean, imagine they had a true 7-footer that McGlockton could play off of. What would that look like? Scary.
Yep. I think for them, I mean, again, this was a tough matchup to go on the road and slow down this team. But, I mean, like we said, if they just can keep finding ways to pull off some of these upsets at home, they haven't have a chance on Saturday against Kentucky. They're going to be closer and closer towards being in the NCAA tournament and getting off the bubble. Because if they start winning games like this at home, if they can pull off a couple more upsets, and I still think for them they need to get to 8. I know as some people were saying yesterday they only have to get to 7. I think Vanderbilt's a team that absolutely needs to get to 8 because their non-conference strength of schedule was not the best. But they'll have a lot of good wins. Even if they get to 7, they'll have a lot of good wins. But I think 8 would be the better formula perhaps. But we'll see because, again, like we said, they've got a tough schedule and it doesn't really get any easier from here. I mean, really the rest of the way for Vanderbilt is just it's a grind. But I fully expect this team to win at least several of those games. Yep.
Cats on Saturday.
Yeah, big game.
That'll be a think possession spread. That'll be a tight spread.
And I think that's one of those games that if they win, they're on the right side of the bubble. If they don't, they're probably on the wrong side. And I don't think that really matters as much. But, I think Blake's right. Their out-of-conference schedule did not give them a lot of meat on the bone. I mean, maybe if Nevada gets hot, makes the tournament. I'm going blank on who else they – I know they lost to Drake. But there weren't a lot of wins in there. So I think that, winning at home is going to be key for them. They've already dropped one in Memorial. I think Kentucky is one, if they don't get that, then getting to 8 looks a little daunting with the remaining schedule after Saturday.
Guys, KenPom has the projection for Vanderbilt, Kentucky on Saturday as Kentucky by 3 points. Bart Torvik has the predicted line at Vanderbilt plus 1.5.
Interesting.
This is a big game on Saturday. Oh boy.
You don't often see a spread like that at this point of the season between those two.
I was just gonna say, I mean, it's probably gonna be somewhere between 1.5 and 3.
What was the Vanderbilt Tennessee one?
That was 6.5.
I think it
6.5 or 8.5
too, wasn't it? I think it had moved down. So I think after something like that, after a win, I mean that's obviously factored in. But we'll see what that number is. So
yeah.
All right. So, again, we're going to wrap up here in about 9 minutes. So we're going to get to a couple things real quickly. Zach, the Super Chat streak continues, $4.99. Good day to Zach. Zach, I'm also predicting you're going to have a good day today at Southeastern 16. Vol Steak is here. Steak is back in the chat. Vandy owned the Vols, but anyways, he'll say it. Go Vols. Steak, long time. Actually, the longest time of anybody, I think, here on the channel. So shout out to Steak. Justin asked, can Vandy keep Mark Byington if they make the tournament?
Watch out for Virginia. Industry source told me that 2 or 3 weeks ago. That's where he's from. If Sanchez doesn't get it done and he's not, they're going to be looking for a coach. Now, we can debate how attractive that is with NIL. Bennett just left. I don't know if that's the wake-up call for that booster base. Crazy to say that the SEC is a better league than the SEC in basketball, at least as of today. Does that work in Vanderbilt's favor? Does that work against Vanderbilt? I don't know. Hard to win in this league right now with all these teams all in on basketball.
All right. And then tonight's games, as we said, we have our predictions video up. You can check out Texas A&M Ole Miss. That is certainly the game of the night. And Florida heads to South Carolina. Always interested to see what the Gamecocks do at home. Had a close call against Auburn, as we know. And then you've got Georgia at Arkansas, which, is a lot more fascinating now because Boogie Fland out for the season, per John Rothstein. And so they take a team that has been not so great offensively, take away their best offensive playmaker. And now what happens for the Hogs in a must-win scenario, not just tonight against Georgia, but also on Saturday against Oklahoma. So, that game must watch for more reasons now. So
Blake and I have Arkansas, and Chris has Georgia. That's the only game we're split on in the midweek. So there'll be some movement in the picks standings. Real quick, guys, because we can touch on that a little bit, but I wanted to just note this. I know, Blake, you put out the numbers earlier in the season about the conference ratings on KenPom and where the SEC stands up all the way back to 1997 when KenPom started. The SEC is now moved up above plus 21 for a net rating.
I got that tweet ready, scheduled for 9:35 a.m. Don't worry, I'm tracking this and it's ready to go. So
do you want to take
stole
the
his
floor
thunder,
then?
Max Barr?
Do you want to take the floor? Because it's the best rating in some time for a conference.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's I feel like I put this out like every couple weeks on Twitter because I'm always fascinated to see where the numbers are. But yeah, I mean, the ACC in 96-97 was at plus 21.37, and the SEC after last night has moved up to plus 21.07. So the SEC will lap the ACC by season's end. So it will, in the KenPom era, it'll be the best conference ever in any single season performance for any conference. Like, it's going to happen. I mean, the numbers they've gone up like 20 in the past like week and a half. So it's going to keep going up. So, because again, as teams play each other, teams get stronger. And so the number will go up, and the SEC will, by season's end, will be the best conference ever this season, 24-25.
And the way KenPom does it is the conference rating is what would you need to be to go 500 in the league, and you start looking at the ratings. It's the team that fits that criteria is somewhere between Mississippi State and Missouri, both ranked teams.
The other thing that's working for the SEC is wins over Iowa State, wins over Houston, wins over Purdue. All these teams are rising. Duke. Yeah, all these teams are rising in their rankings, which is pushing the SEC's rating up because they banked those wins back in November or early December. So, I mean, guys, that's pretty crazy. I mean, this is the best basketball conference in my life.
Man.
That's nuts.
Anyone's life.
It's pretty surreal.
There you have it. All right. We're going to head out of here in about 3 or 4 minutes. Get your questions, comments, anything else in. Yeah, we appreciate you guys as always. Hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications. Some big stuff coming on the channel as we've teased today, and some other stuff coming the rest of the week. We got predictions for the weekend. We got reaction to tonight's games, which most likely we'll be doing tomorrow morning again, sometimes in the midweek, just the way it works, depending on game times. So and matchups, quite honestly. So probably be doing our reaction for tonight's games tomorrow morning, and so because there are 2 late games tonight, and if Ole Miss and Texas A&M are starting at 8 p.m. Central, they'll be done by 11 p.m. Central, most likely. So we'll probably wait and discuss those tomorrow morning, and so as we said, lots of fun stuff coming here on the channel, and yeah, gonna be great.
Blake, you look miserable.
Wow.
You do.
I'm really not.
I would be too if I was sitting in 30 degrees or whatever you're sitting in.
I'm not miserable. It's warmer in here today than it was yesterday. So
you know who wasn't miserable last night?
Place.
Big Baller Brett was not miserable.
Oh, that's true.
Thanks for the super chat. Yeah. Aden Holloway. He's got to get his name drop in.
Yeah.
He's been playing lights out.
All right. Yeah, we're gonna head out of here. Oh, I forgot. I'm just gonna use this as a segue. This just came up 5 seconds ago, but this will be the segue. Holly said that I missed the ad read. Been on the phone with my 93-year-old grandmother for most of the stream. Well, you know what, Holly? Here's the deal. If you want to move your 93-year-old grandmother to you and never have to use the phone again, go to Sanders Logistics, because they are, as we know, your friends and mine. And I can't get to your comment off the screen, but I'll let Max worry about that, because Sanders Logistics is formerly known as Ted R. Sanders Moving, a leader among moving companies in Nashville, Tennessee, and the surrounding area. Their team of professional movers will move Grandma and anyone else, because they are focused on delivering efficient, hassle-free moving at affordable price. Throw the phone out the window. Bring anyone to you with Sanders Logistics. Tell them to give them a call. Whether they're moving across town or across the country, Sanders Logistics has you covered. Visit them at tedrsandersmoving.com.
Nice. Very nice.
All right. There you have it.
Okay, we're out of here.
Thank you for watching. Got plenty of content coming, including, of course, reactions in the morning. Got more predictions coming. Working on baseball stuff. Working hard on baseball stuff behind the scenes. Interviewing, I'll just leave it this way, an SEC coach who was in Omaha last year. That's scheduled for tomorrow. Tune in and see who it is. Matt. Whoever Matt might be this morning. Anyway, thank you for watching us here at Southeastern 16. God bless you. Stay safe. Stay warm. We'll see you again soon with more hoops and baseball content here at Southeastern 16.